Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This is breaking down today's 8-game NBA slate for today on Draftkings. It's a pretty good one. We got a lot of good spend-up options, a lot of good mid-range options, a lot of good value options, so I am looking forward to it. But before we continue, I do want to announce that I am running a contest in the comment section below on today's video. So last time I tried to do this, it was with Karl-Anthony Towns. I had a lot of comments, and then like an hour before lock, he randomly got ruled out, and I felt pretty darn bad about it because there was a lot of comments. And I really wanted to do it. Felt really bad. Had to scrap the idea, but I said I was going to do it again at some point, and today is that some point. So in the comments below, I want to know how many DraftKings points you guys think Joel Embiid scores on today's slate, and you got to comment before the game starts, or else you're not going to win. and and if you do happen to get the closest, you can get access to a free week of my NASCAR package. I mean, it seems to be doing pretty well so far this season. It's my most viewed stuff on YouTube, most liked stuff. Getting a lot of subscribers from that, and a lot of people have signed up on Patreon, gotten a lot of good feedback. A lot of people have been doing pretty darn well according to the Discord chat, and some feedback on the YouTube comments and on Twitter. So if you guys want to join the contest, just tell me how many fantasy points you think Joel Embiid scores, and if you're the closest, you can get access to my NASCAR package for the rest of the month, which is only one race, so 1 week. So yeah. That's pretty much it. Tell me how many fantasy points you think he scores, and if you're lucky enough to win, you can hit me up on Twitter and just DM me, or I'll just DM you, either way. But before we continue again, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me over on Twitter. I'm at Pennell16, and if you win and you're not following me on Twitter, I mean, you gotta follow me on Twitter so I can message you. And if you want to support me over on Patreon, it's much appreciated. You can get access to whatever sport you're interested in. I'm previewing my NBA spreadsheet to you guys as of right now. You can get access to my projections, cheat sheet, data sheet, DVP chart, do NASCAR, like I said, articles, all that stuff, Discord chat. Then when MLB starts up, I love baseball, so got a spreadsheet for that, all that good stuff. So you got some stuff to look forward to. But, like I said, if you're interested in NBA, that's what I'm previewing to you guys as of right now, and I updated all the way up until lock. And I think that's enough plugging and shameless plugs. I think we can get into today's slate. So, up top, let me get comfy here. Okay, so up top, we have Giannis. He comes in at 11,400. So, if we gave Giannis over 30 minutes versus Washington, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility of him scoring near 80 fantasy points. Like, he should, when he's on the court in this game, he should absolutely annihilate the Wizards. The problem is, the Bucks are probably going to steamroll these guys. Now, I do not have a total out for any game yet, but I was looking around at some other sites, and there was a couple of totals out, and I believe the Bucks have I think it's like a 241 total here. I did not see a spread, but I have to imagine I don't know, it could be close to 15, if not more, versus the Wizards for the Bucks. So I could see him not getting any fourth quarter run. Although I will say the one game, I forget who it was against, but Giannis was out there, and they're up like 20 plus in the fourth quarter, and he was still playing with like 5 minutes left, which is very odd because they usually have a quick trigger on him. They'll pull him if he's not needed, but let's just say, in a vacuum, he gets 30-plus minutes versus Washington. I mean, his upside is absolutely insane. If we look at his numbers so far this season, he's at 1.91 points per minute, which leads the league. I mean, I believe Luka is second with 1.7, so he's just far and away from the field by anybody else. Now, the problem is he only averages 30 minutes per game, but he's just so good point per minute-wise. And he has a 37.7% usage rate, which is, I think it is league high. It's right up there with Luka and James Harden. I don't think anyone else is above that. So, yeah, Giannis is an absolute monster. And this game is a great game environment. Now, the problem is it's probably going to be a Bucks blowout, but this game's going to be a track meet. The Bucks are first in pace of play, and the Wizards are sixth. And the Wizards defensively are one of the worst defensive units in the entire league. They rank third worst, right behind Atlanta and Cleveland. And versus power forwards, they're ranked 21st and 27th versus small forwards. So this is an elite matchup for Giannis. The only concern here is him not getting full minutes, which I think is definitely a possibility. But I still think he's a tremendous play in tournaments. Could you get away with it in cash games? You could, because I could, even if he only plays like 23 to 26 minutes, he can still get over 60 fantasy points, and it's not like he's priced in the 12K range, so you could get away with it. There's other guys I like on this slate that are a little bit cheaper that I think get full run, so I'm probably going to reserve Giannis for tournaments only, and you just better hope that he gets full minutes. But yeah, Giannis, when he's on the court, he should absolutely smash the Wizards. James Harden, he comes in at 11,000. He's starting to turn it up. Russell Westbrook was the better play for a while, but in at least the last 4 games, James Harden has scored less than 60 fantasy points. So it looks like he's found his groove for at least, for the moment at least. You know, he can go in cold streaks, especially if he's not hitting his threes. But he's looking good for right now, so hopefully that continues. But he's playing at home versus New York, and they're not a good defensive squad, especially versus guards. If we head over to the DVP chart, Knicks ranked 24th versus point guards and 14th versus shooting guards. So this is a pretty good matchup for James Harden. We know his upside. He's got near Giannis upside, and he plays way more minutes than Giannis does just nightly. He's averaging nearly 37 minutes per game, which is about 7 more minutes per game than Giannis gets, and he's at 1.62 points per minute. He's not as good point per minute wise as Giannis, but the extra minutes more than make up for it for James Harden. And he's at 36.5% usage rate. There's really nothing not to like about James Harden. He is a little bit expensive, but we know the upside. He's going to play all the minutes he can handle. It's a pretty good matchup. Now, it's a pace down spot for the Rockets playing against the Knicks, but they are playing at home, so I expect the Rockets to be able to control the game environment here, and we know that they like to play fast. So James Harden, I do think he's a pretty good option. Not sure if I'd get there in cash games, just because I think there's a couple of other guys in better price points and really good matchups. But I do think he's fine for tournaments. Trae Young, he comes in at 10,600. So I don't love him versus Philly because this is a really tough matchup, but we do know Trae Young is matchup proof. We've seen him excel in bad matchups before. You know, he had the game versus Miami where he dropped 50 real life points. But the reason I listed Trae here, again, he's not my favorite player in the world, and I would not play him in cash games, but I have a lot of interest in all these Philly players, and if you want them to all hit their potential, now some of them are just really cheap, because and they're going to be in expanded roles because Ben Simmons is out and Tobias Harris. But if you want these guys to get full run and not blow out Atlanta, you're going to have to hope Trae Young on the other side is scoring a ton of points. So I think it makes sense if you're playing a lot of these 76ers to pair them up with Trae Young and GPPs. You don't have to do that in cash games because I think the 76ers are fine just by themselves. But if you want like full maximum potential in a GPP and just, you know, hopefully to hit, you know, just hope to hit the nuts, you could run it back with Trae Young because we know his upside's there. He's going to play all the minutes he can handle, and we know the guy's got near 80 fantasy point upside as long as he's feeling a shot. And he's been feeling a shot recently too, and you know, it's just, you know, these Atlanta games tend to be always high scoring because they're just so bad defensively, and they also play fast. And this should be a pretty high scoring game. I do not see a total yet out for this, but I have to imagine it's going to be above 230. And on the year, Trae Young, he's at 1.45 points per minute with a 35% usage rate. But like I was saying, this is not a good matchup for him. Philly is the best defensive team in the league for fantasy points given up, and they rank second versus point guards. So not a good matchup at all. But we know Trae Young can excel in these kind of matchups. Versus Miami, he just absolutely blew up, and they're ranked third. So not really too scared about the matchup. That's just going to lower his ownership. So I do think he's fine in GPPs. Not a cash game play in my opinion, because Luka is 100 less than Trae Young, and that should never be the case because Luka is a much safer play on a nightly basis because he can do. I'm not saying that Trae Young can only just score points. He's actually averaging a lot of assists per game. But Luka, you can get the rebounds. Obviously, you can get the assists, and you can do just pretty much everything. And Luka is just a much safer play. I mean, if you look at the numbers this season, he's at 1.7 points per minute compared to 1.45 points per minute for Trae Young. So Luka is just a much more safe play in my opinion. I think he's the better cash game play, probably the better tournament play too. But just in general, I think Luka's the best, not the best play, but the better play between the two, and honestly, he's my favorite spend up as of right now, just price wise. Like, I mean, him and Joel Embiid. If you could start your lineups with Joel Embiid and Luka Doncic, I think that's a great way to go, and there should be enough value on the slate to do so. I love their upsides, and I both think they're a little bit too cheap. So yeah. Anyway, Luka, he's got a 37.4% usage rate in the season. He's at 1.7 points per minute. And he's just way too cheap here. I believe the last game he was 10,200, and he ended up getting rolled out, and so did Kristaps Porzingis, which that was crazy because we didn't expect Luka Doncic to be out. But he's going to be good to go for this game. But 10,500 is just too cheap for him. He's usually in that 11 to 12K range, so when he's below 11K, we haven't seen that in a while besides the last game. So it's kind of just, it feels like it's just an easy plug and play for Luka when he's 10,500, and especially in this good matchup versus Minnesota. It's a pace-up spot for Dallas. They're 24th in pace of play, while Minnesota is third. So I love the pace-up spot, especially for a guy like Luka. And if you look at the DVP chart, Minnesota does rank 22nd versus point guards and 25th versus shooting guards. So this is a very good matchup for Luka. He's one of the best players in the NBA, one of the best fantasy players for fantasy purposes. So yes, Luka Doncic, you can certainly look his way. Right below him, we have Kawhi Leonard. He comes in at 9,700. I only have him listed here just in case Paul George is listed as inactive. Now, I know he was in shoot around and he practiced, I believe, the past couple of days. So it sounds like he's going to be good to go. But you never know. Paul George is the kind of guy that just doesn't like to play basketball a lot of the times. And Kawhi Leonard, too. They both miss a lot of games. But if Paul George is out, you could look Kawhi Leonard's way in GPPs. Now, I'd still prefer to play Luka Doncic. But this is a really good matchup for the Clippers versus Memphis. It's going to be a fast-paced game. Both teams are top 10 in pace of play. We know how bad defensively Memphis is. They are right behind Portland, and they rank 25th versus small forwards, 27th versus shooting guards. So really good matchup for Kawhi Leonard. And if you take Paul George off the court this year, Kawhi Leonard's about 1.6 points per minute with a close to 40% usage rate. So you could certainly look his way, but I'd still rather play Luka Doncic even if Paul George happens to be out. Now, one of my favorite plays on the entire slate, I might make him and Luka my cover photos, which whenever I make a guy a cover photo, he seems to just get ruled out randomly, so maybe I shouldn't, but really like Joel Embiid and Luka Doncic on this slate. But yeah, Embiid, you got to like him. Ben Simmons is going to be out, and Tobias Harris is going to be out. And if you take both those guys off the court, Joel Embiid's numbers are absolutely insane. If you just look at his numbers on the season, they're still really good. 1.51 points per minute with a 32% usage rate. But if you take both of those guys off the court, he's at 36.9% usage rate and 1.64 points per minute. That's better than James Harden. So, yeah, you got to like Joel Embiid. He doesn't typically play minutes in the mid-30s. We've seen it a couple times this season. If this game stays close, they might need him to play more minutes because Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris are out. But you should be able to smash. And I didn't even talk about the matchup yet. He gets that good matchup versus Atlanta. Everyone crushes Atlanta. Clint Capella's not going to be back yet, so they have absolutely no one down low that could even contend with him. Now, the problem is, sometimes with Joel Embiid, he can be a little soft, and I'll never forget the one game he was crushing. I believe it was versus Memphis. He had like 34 points in the first half. Didn't come back in the second half because of neck stiffness. So that's just the downside of Joel Embiid, but I'm not going to bank on that ever happening because I can't project that happening. So Joel Embiid, I think he's a very good play versus Atlanta. They're the worst defensive team in the league. They rank 27 versus centers. They just suck down low, and they really just in all aspects. And it's a pace-up spot for the 76ers. They're 18th in pace of play, and Atlanta is 4th. So Joel Embiid, I think, is a pretty darn good play on today's slate. Nikola Vucevic, I expect him to not really get any ownership at all. You got Bam Adebayo below him versus Cleveland, which I guess you could worry about blowout potential there. But then you got Joel Embiid right above him. So I don't think a lot of people are going to be on Vucevic because you're not going to be able to afford Embiid, Doncic, and Vucevic. So he should be very low owned. So if you want to pivot away from Embiid chalk, I get it, but I personally recommend it. Probably not, but Vucevic's been scoring 50 points consecutively here recently, so he's been pretty good form. And last time I played him versus Brooklyn, I think he had like 54 fantasy points, like 49, 54, something like that. He started out really slow, but he ended up finishing the game really well. I think he had like 26 rebounds, something like that. Yeah, this is a really good spot for Vucevic. Brooklyn really struggles down low with centers, or obviously down low with centers, but they rank 28th versus the position, and we've seen Vucevic eat up Brooklyn time and time again. And pace-up spot as well. Orlando is a 29th in pace of play, while Brooklyn is 9th. So I always like getting guys in pace-up spots. And his numbers are very strong on the season. 1.3 points per minute with a 26.2% usage rate. He's a solid GPP pivot off of Embiid. Wouldn't play him in cash games, and really I'd much rather play Embiid still in tournaments, but he's fine as a pivot if you just want to get away from that chalk. Bam Adebayo, 8,500. So he was crushing Cleveland last time out. The problem was they didn't need him to play that much because they were up by like 40 at one point. So he didn't have to play full minutes. But when he was on the court, he was doing good. Now the problem was he wasn't rebounding. I think he had like 9 assists, 12 points, and then he had like 1 rebound at one point. I don't know what he did after that, but yeah, he never came back. He had like 33 points. I don't remember exactly how many minutes he played, but it couldn't have been full minutes. But it's a good matchup versus Cleveland. Now the problem is they could easily blow these guys out again. Now I know there's no Jimmy Butler, so that might help, but it really didn't make a difference last game. But if we take Butler off the court, Bam's numbers are pretty darn good. He's over 1.2 points per minute, and Bam, he's just having a breakout year. I mean, he's awesome this season. He does a little bit of everything, which is nice. He gets points, he gets rebounds, and he gets assists. He's a really good passer, so I do like Bam Adebayo. And it's a really good matchup versus Cleveland as well. If you ever see the DVP chart, they rank 2nd worst overall, and they rank 20th versus centers. Andre Drummond defense is something to attack, not be scared of. So, do like Mr. Bam Adebayo. I forgot what I was talking about for a second. And so we can certainly look his ways. Numbers are strong this season. 1.17 points per minute, 20% usage rate. So don't mind Bam. Just know that there's blowout potential. I've not seen a spread yet on this game, but I had to imagine it's probably near double digits in Miami's favor because they're a much better team than Cleveland is. Julius Randle, 8,200. He's fine just because it's a big man versus Houston, athletic big man at that, and I really don't have anyone to contend with Julius Randle. Now I don't really like paying 8K plus for Randle. I feel like he's more of a 7K player, but he's fine in tournaments. I wouldn't get there in cash games, but it's a good matchup versus Houston. They're pretty bad down low. If you look at the numbers, they rank 10th versus center, but that was also with Clint Capella there, so it softens up a little bit. But I will say they've actually been not like too trash versus big men, but I do think they can struggle with an athletic forward/big man like Julius Randle. They do rank 27 versus power forward, so I think Julius Randle will be fine here. And, if you look at the numbers on the season, it's a pace-up spot for the Knicks. They are 18th in pace of play, while Houston is 5th. So always like getting guys in pace-up spots. And on the year, he's at 1.13 points per minute with a 27% usage rate. So you can certainly look his way. And also, Elfrid Payton is questionable for this game, as is Frank Ntilikina. So if those guys are both out, obviously just more of an offensive load for Julius Randle to handle. Kristaps Porzingis, he comes in at 8,100. Looks like they're both going to be good to go for this game, but he's still been playing pretty well even when Luka does play, so I don't mind him in tournaments. Wouldn't play him in cash games just because, I don't know, I just don't like playing Kristaps when they're both healthy, especially at this price tag, 8,100, but he's fine. The guy's certainly got upside. It's a good matchup versus Minnesota. They don't have anyone that can contend with him down low. He's too big. He can shoot. He's just a really good shooter. He can do pretty much anything he wants on Minnesota. Problem is he's playing alongside Luka, who's just an absolute dominant player, but there's room for both of them to hit their potentials. But it's a good matchup versus Minnesota, and it's a nice pace-up spot as well. Dallas is 24th in pace of play, while Minnesota is 3rd. On the year, he's at 1.24 points per minute with a 26% usage rate. Now, he doesn't play huge minutes. He's only averaging 30 minutes per game. Got him for about 32 minutes here, but I think he's fine. If you look at the DVP chart, Minnesota does rank 24th versus power forwards, 16th versus centers, so certainly think you can look Kristaps Porzingis' way in tournaments. Donovan Mitchell, this guy's a really hit-or-miss guy. He can score 42 points, then he can score 17 points, then he can score 45 points, then he can score 18 points. He's a really hit-or-miss guy, and I haven't been getting him right recently. I had him right the one time versus New Orleans where he went like nearly 70 fantasy points, but other than that, I've been not having success playing Donovan Mitchell. But I do like the spot versus Phoenix. It's like going to be a fast-paced matchup, or up-tempo matchup, I should say. For the Jazz, they're 27th in pace of play, while the other team is 10th in pace of play, or Phoenix, I should say. So, like the pace-up spot here, and they do struggle defensively versus guards. If you ever see the DVP chart, they rank 20th versus shooting guards, 17th versus point guards. So he should be able to excel in this matchup. Now, the problem is he's 7,500. I wish he was just a little bit less expensive because he can be really hit or miss. But averaging 34 minutes per game, 1.12 points per minute, over a 30% usage rate, I do think he's fine in all formats, but probably more reserved for GPPs because he's been pretty hit or miss lately. Robert Covington, he's been pretty consistent with just getting at least 30 fantasy points recently. Doing a little bit of everything in the stat sheet, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, hit a couple threes. Just been playing pretty well. Now, the 6K is not too bad of a price tag, and it's actually a pretty solid matchup versus New York. But he's going to play mid-30s minutes here. I mean, nothing too exciting, but he's just more of a lineup filler. He's going to be about a point per minute guy. So, nothing really I can go too in depth about Robert Covington, but he's a fine lineup filler. That's about as much as I can say. Goran Dragic, he comes in at 6K. So he didn't crush like Kendrick Nunn did in the last game, but he wasn't terrible either. Now, the game not staying close didn't help, or he would have played more minutes, but he was fine when he was on the court. But he comes in at 6K. His price did rise, but there's going to be no Jimmy Butler, so when you take Jimmy Butler off the court, usage rate gets actually close to 30%, and he's about 1.06 points per minute, so the numbers are pretty strong. And it's an elite matchup versus Cleveland. They just played these guys, and obviously him and Kendrick Nunn went off, but they're just so bad versus guards. They're 30th versus point guards, 30th versus shooting guards, so can't ask for a much better matchup at all if you're a guard. So gotta like the two guards here in Goran Dragic and Kendrick Nunn. Speaking of Kendrick Nunn, he went off in the last game, scored over 40 fantasy points, kind of got out of that slump he was in. Now, they raised his price about $1,000, but he should play close to 30 minutes here, if not more. And the thing was, he was playing in the blowout. They let him play, so I don't know. I don't know why they keep letting him play, but I'm not going to complain if I play him this time around. He's closer to a point per minute if you take Jimmy Butler off the court, as just in general he's at 0.88 points per minute, but that gets closer to a point per minute without Jimmy Butler. The usage rate also goes up to around 25%, so Kendrick Nunn's fine. It's an elite matchup versus Cleveland. Montrezl Harrell, he comes in at 5,400. Just like the matchup versus Memphis, he's not a guy that's going to play huge minutes, and he can be pretty hit or miss, but the guy definitely has upside. We've seen a couple of upside games from him. Like the game environment here, both teams are top 10 in pace of play. He's good point per minute wise, 1.16 points per minute with a 25% usage rate. Not my most favorite play in the world, but I do like the matchup versus Memphis. They're just so bad defensively. And if you head over to the DVP chart, they rank 22nd versus centers, 20th versus power forwards. So certainly think you can look his way. Just in tournaments, though, I wouldn't play him in cash games. Mike Conley, he comes in 5,300. He's been stepping it up recently. Been scoring at least 30 fantasy points in at least the last 4 or 5 games. He's been playing pretty well. Good matchup versus Phoenix. Should get about 30 minutes here. And on the year, he's at 0.91 points per minute, which is not too bad. He's been playing a little bit better than that recently, too. So, I mean, he had a rough stretch earlier in the year. So, he might get closer to a point per minute as the year goes on, as long as he keeps playing like he is. And he's got a 23.6% usage rate. I already talked about the matchup versus Phoenix when I was talking about Donovan Mitchell, but they do rank 17th versus point guards and 20th versus shooting guards. So Mike Conley, he's fine. Not like a super exciting play, but he's a fine lineup filler. Jay Crowder, I think he's a safe bet for probably around 22 to 30 points, if not more, just depending on how he's playing. But I think he's a safe bet for probably about 25 to 32 points. I think that's a safe assumption. Good matchup versus Cleveland. He did fine in the last game. Nothing too exciting here. He's about a 0.9 point per minute guy. Not going to go too in depth about Jay Crowder. He's just a lineup filler, as is Duncan Robinson. They raised his price a little bit. They raised all these Miami Heat players a little bit, which deservedly so. They're playing Cleveland and no Jimmy Butler. But Robinson's fine. He got off to a hot start in the last game. Really didn't need to do much at the end of the game because they were killing Cleveland. So, I mean, you really can't blame him for not having a big second half. But he should play over 30 minutes here, and just a good matchup versus Cleveland as shooting guard / small forward. On the year, his numbers are pretty ugly at 0.74 points per minute, but if you take Jimmy Butler off the court, obviously these numbers are going to improve, so you can look Duncan Robinson's way. I do have Alec Burks listed here. Now, it's just because that Ben Simmons is going to be out and Tobias Harris, so I expect him to probably get about mid-20s minutes, maybe lower 20s, but should play anywhere from 22 to 25 minutes. If we're lucky, maybe even more, just depending on how he's going to play. But love the matchup versus Atlanta. And if you take all those guys off the court, Burks is at a 18.9% usage rate and 1.25 points per minute. Now, that's an extremely, extremely small sample size, so I really wouldn't put any stock into it. But the guy had success in Golden State, and obviously there's a lot better players on the 76ers than there was in Golden State. But I think he can be productive versus Atlanta. They're just so bad defensively. It's a fast-paced matchup versus Atlanta. They're ranked 28th versus shooting guards, 20th versus point guards, 30th versus small forwards. So this is a really good matchup for Alec Burks. So we can certainly look his way. And just in general this season, he's been over a point per minute guy, 23.6% usage rate. So Alec Burks, you can look his way just because of the lack of bodies on Philly. Or I should say important bodies. There's a lot of bodies, but lack of important bodies. Josh Richardson, I really like Josh Richardson. We know he's going to play over 30 minutes here. He's only 4,800. Love the matchup versus Atlanta. I'm not going to keep talking about the matchup versus Atlanta or showing you guys the DVP chart because you guys get the idea. They are very bad defensively. Worst defensive team in the league, and it's also a fast-paced matchup. Again, it's not like a broken record, but it's just the truth. And on the year, he's at 0.85 points per minute with a 21% usage rate. If you take Harris and Simmons off the court, Richardson's at a 27.4% usage rate and 1.05 points per minute. So it gets a pretty massive bump there. So Josh Richardson, I think he's one of the best 4K players on the entire slate. I would expect him to be very popular as well. And Al Horford, he's going to get minutes in the mid-30s here. Definitely going to see a jump in minutes. He's not been playing many minutes recently. He hasn't been playing that well. But Tobias Harris is going to be out the court. Ben Simmons is going to be out the court. He's going to be forced into a bigger role. He's only 4,500. I mean, seems like a pretty easy play in my opinion. I mean, he should be able to pay off his price tag fairly easily versus a very bad Atlanta defense. Like I said, it's a pace-up spot as well. On the years at 1 point per minute, pretty much averaging 30 minutes per game. You take those guys off the court. Horford's at 1.04 points per minute, over a 22% usage rate. So Al Horford, like him a lot at this price tag, and should be able to pay off the price tag pretty easily. Okay, and also going down to Derek Jones, he gets a bump without Jimmy Butler. He had a pretty good game last time out. He's only 4,100. Price didn't change too much, and he actually did get the start in the last game. Got him close to 30 minutes here, and obviously his numbers are going to go up if you take Jimmy Butler off the court. Closer to a point per minute. Usage rate also gets bumped up. So Derek Jones is fine. It's a really good matchup versus Cleveland. All right, so continuing our 76ers trend. Yeah, Furkan Korkmaz here, or Korkmaz, I should say. So he's not. I don't expect him to play a whole bunch of minutes, but we've seen a couple of upside games from him. I don't love it, but the guy's got somewhat potential. He's only 4K, so if he gets hot, he'll get hot. I wouldn't really call him the most amazing cash game play, but he is really cheap, and he should see extended minutes. And if you take those guys off the court, he's got a near 20% usage rate, and he's only at 0.7 points per minute, though, which is not that great. So, all right, I mean, the usage rate, I'm looking at Alec Burks, I'm sorry. Usage rate's around 15 to 17%, so, yeah. But only 0.7 points per minute. Not the biggest sample size in the world, but so we have to go off of. But it's a matchup versus Atlanta. Anyone can have a good game versus Atlanta. He's only 4K, so I don't mind him in tournaments. D'Anthony Melton, he's coming off a monster game. He had over 40 fantasy points. And he's really cheap, 3,900, and he's been pretty solid this season point per minute wise. He's at 1.07 points per minute, which is pretty good. 20% usage rate. And the problem is he only averages 18 minutes per game. But I got him for a little bit over 20 here. And if he can get over 20 minutes versus the Clippers, I think he can do it. I mean, it's not the most amazing matchup in the world, but it's going to be a fast-paced game environment, which I think suits a guy like Melton well. And if you look at the DVP chart, the Clippers rank 14th versus point guards, 15th versus shooting guards. So it's more middle of the road. It's not like they're like clamped, locked down, top 5 defense versus point guards. So I think Melton's fine. Not too exciting, but I think I guess he's more exciting than PJ Tucker, that's for sure. So certainly more exciting than PJ Tucker. So let's talk about PJ Tucker. He's like the least exciting play in the world. He does absolutely nothing. He'll stand on the corner. Maybe he hits a couple of threes. I know the one game he hit like 4 or 5 threes, which is crazy, but that's pretty much all he does. There's some games he'll get some rebounds. Doesn't really do anything else. He'll shoot a corner three, and then he'll get some rebounds. That's pretty much it. Maybe he'll luck into some blocks or steals, but the guy's usage rate is like 8%. Yeah, 8.7%. That's terrible. And he's got only at 0.62 points per minute. You can't play him with confidence, but hey, if you have 3,800 left, you could throw him in there. I don't hate it. I kind of hate it, but it's not the worst thing in the world just because the minutes are there. But he's just so bad point per minute wise. So you could look his way. Just that's ugly though. Kelly Olynyk, he had a pretty good game last time out. No Jimmy Butler, so again, all these guys are going to get extended minutes. And there's also no Tyler Hero. I forgot to mention that as well, which also boosts guys like Kendrick Nunn and Goran Dragic. But yeah, Kelly Olynyk should get mid-20s minutes here. Played pretty well in the last game. And it's just a good matchup versus Cleveland. Same matchup as he had last game. And on the year, he's at 0.91 points per minute with a 16% usage rate. You take Butler off the court, those numbers go up even more. So Olynyk's fine. Don't hate it. Eric Gordon, so he comes in at 3,700. It's just a price thing. I feel like he could be a little bit more expensive. I'm not going out of my way to play Eric Gordon because Westbrook and Harden are both going to be playing. But if he gets mid-20s minutes here, 3,700, you could knock down a couple threes. I don't hate it. 0.8 points per minute, 22% usage rate. You could do a lot worse than Eric Gordon. I mean, the Knicks have not been that great versus guards either. Dennis Smith Jr., I have him listed here just because Alfred Payton is questionable and Frank Ntilikina looks like he might not play either. So, I mean, Smith, if Alfred Payton's out and all the other guys are out, he's going to be forced into minutes. As of right now, I don't have him projected playing just because I'm not sure what they're going to be doing with Payton and whatnot. But if they're both out, Smith's going to be like the only healthy point guard. So he's going to be forced into minutes. He's only 3,300. It's a really good matchup versus Houston. So I could see him turning into the chalk, which is never fun. Dennis Smith Jr.'s chalk is never, ever fun. But we'd probably be forced to play him at 3,300. And yeah, it's a good matchup versus Houston. Paced up spot for the Rockets. And on the year, they rank 21st versus point guard. So DSJ, keep him on your radar just for the injury news. We'll have to see. But just keep him on your radar. Glenn Robinson, GR3, whatever you want to call him. G-Rob3, whatever. Should play mid-20s minutes here. No Ben Simmons, no Tobias Harris. Not the worst play in the world, only 3,200. And if you take those guys off the court, he's at 0.91 points per minute with a 21.4% usage rate. Is the sample size small? Yes, very, but that's all I have to go off of. But should play mid-20s minutes at 3,200, and he's playing Atlanta. So you could probably get us close to 24. Or the scene really quick, because I forgot to put Gorgie Deng in here. So Jaren Jackson is going to miss this game, and obviously Gorgie Deng got traded to Memphis, so he's going to see some more minutes. Got him for around, what, a little bit over 20. Would not surprise me if that number maybe crept up a little bit more if we're lucky. But he's pretty good on a point per minute basis. If you look at his numbers on the season, obviously he's on a different team, but he's at 1.17 points per minute. I mean, this is a decent game environment. The Clippers are not that good versus big men. If you head over to the DVP charts, one of their weaker spots, they do rank, where are they at? 23rd versus center. So I do like the spot for Gorgie Deng. So you can certainly look his way. And if we drop down to Robin Lopez, he comes in at 3K. Brooke Lopez is going to miss this game. And he's going to see about 25 minutes here, maybe a little bit more in the 3K. I don't see how he doesn't pay off his price tag. I mean, he's going to grade out as a really good point per dollar option. I know he does for me as of right now. So, yeah, you can certainly look Lopez's way. I mean, on the year, he's at 0.81 points per minute. You take Lopez off the court, obviously the number's going to go up. Only averages 13 minutes per game, but that's nearly doubling in this game. So, should be able to pay off his price tag quite easily, especially in a good matchup versus the Wizards. Pace up spot. And if you ever to the DVP chart, Washington does rank 26 versus centers. So, yeah, gotta like Robin Lopez at that price tag. So that's pretty much gonna be it for this video, guys. But before we get out of here, I do want to talk about the sponsor of the show, OverlayDFS.com. Alright guys, if you're new to the channel, you don't know what this is. If you've been watching, you probably do know what it is. But like I said, if you're new, this is OverlayDFS.com. It's a new, fun, casual-based DFS experience. So you're not going to see sharks over here like Chipotle mass entering their lineups, and there's actually no lineups here. There's no salary cap restrictions. It's just a pick-em-based website. It's as easy as it sounds. So, for example, this is a early look at tomorrow's slate. So if you think Giannis is going to outscore Harden, you pick Giannis. If you think Trae Young's going to outscore Luka Doncic, you pick Trae Young. I would personally pick Luka Doncic, but that's neither here or there. And if you think Russell Westbrook's going to outscore Kawhi Leonard, you pick Russell Westbrook. It's as simple as that. And I love their payout structure. I think that's the best thing about OverlayDFS.com. I love their payout structure. I know multiple people has come to me and actually said they love their payout structure as well, and I would agree with them. So if you finish in the top 10% of the contest, you win 9x your money. So to be able to 9x your money on DraftKings, you have to finish like near the very, very, very top. And even some contests, if you win first, you're not even 9xing your money. I mean, very difficult to 9x your money on DraftKings, but finishing in the top 10% here, you can do that. So for example, this is the $22 double deuce contest. If you finish in the top 10%, you win $180. It's as simple as that. And they also have some really new fun challenges they're rolling out. So one thing is their Slump Buster challenge. So if you happen to lose 20 days in a row, God forbid that happens to you. I hope it doesn't happen to you. But if you lose 20 days in a row, not consecutive days, but say you play once a week for 20 weeks in a row and you lose every single time, that's rough, but they will refund every single dollar you deposited, so they're basically daring you guys to lose. And if you happen to go 0-12 in your picks, they'll also give you $500. So just a little challenges out there. And also the cool thing is, if you go 12-0 on your picks, you can win the progressive jackpot, which has now reached $12,000. It's been a while since someone hit it. Someone's due to hit it, so why not you? Do not miss out on the chance to win $12,000. No strings attached. They'll go right to your account, then you can withdraw it, and you'll have $12,000 in your bank account. It's as simple as that. Guys, it's been close. I went 10-2 one night. I was very, very close. I think one guy went 11-1 one night a couple weeks ago. So jackpots are really getting up there. Someone's due to hit, so do not miss out before it resets. Check it out, guys. OverlayDFS.com. Check it out. I would put the link in the description below, but I don't want to risk my channel getting banned for a week or something. So it's exactly how that sounds. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Hope it was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Do not forget to tell me how many fantasy points you think Joel Embiid scores. That's important. That's going to be it for this video. Enjoy your Monday. I got to get some sleep. I got 3 to 4 hours of sleep last night. It's terrible. So I'm going to go to bed. All right, enjoy your Monday, and I'll see you in the next video.